Ain't nobody gonna buy dust and thistle, girl. You threw good money after a dead man's folly. That's what Ezra Combs said to me, right there on the steps of the land office in Prosperity, Kansas, with half the town listening in, the ink still wet on my deed. I didn't answer him. I just folded the paper into my coat pocket and walked past him with my chin up, though my knees were shaking so bad I thought they'd give out before I made it to my wagon. My name is Adaline Foss, and I was 26 years old, a widow of 11 months, with $40 to my name and a dead husband's debts still chasing me like hounds. Everett had been gone less than a year, thrown from a horse on a fool errand to town for whiskey he didn't need. And in that time, I'd learned exactly what a woman alone is worth in the eyes of a frontier town, which is to say, nothing, less than nothing. I was a burden waiting to happen, a widow to be pitted at church, and then forgotten the moment the offering plate passed. So when old Walter Higgins died with no kin and his 70 acres went up for sale, dry, cracked, useless-looking land out past the North Ridge, the kind of ground folks said couldn't grow a decent turnip, I used every dollar I'd left by it. Everyone thought I'd lost my mind. You could have married again, my sister-in-law Constance told me, shaking her head over my kitchen table, her voice pinched with the particular disappointment of a woman who'd married well and couldn't understand why I hadn't managed the same. There's still men who'd take you, Adaline, widow or not. But land? What do you know of working land? I know I'd rather starve on my own dirt than beg on someone else's, I said, and I meant it, though the words tasted like fear going down. The truth was I didn't buy that land because I believed in it. I bought it because it was the only thing in the world nobody could take from me by marrying me, courting me, or pitying me into submission. It was mine, cracked and worthless as it looked. It was the first thing that had been only mine since the day I said my vows to Everett Foss and became, in the eyes of the law and the town both, an extension of a man instead of a woman with a name. The land came with a barn, a leaning, gray-boarded thing that looked like it might fall over if a hard wind came through, which in that part of Kansas, it regularly did. The house, if you could call it that, was a two-room shack with a stove that smoked more than it warmed and a roof that let the stars in through more gaps than I care to count. I moved in on a Tuesday in early March, with a mule named Judas, a milk cow I traded my mother's silver spoons for, and a crate of chickens that hated me on sight. The first week, I nearly quit. I won't pretend otherwise. I stood in that barn in the gray morning light, listening to the wind howl through the boards like something grieving, and I cried until I didn't have any crying left in me. Then I wiped my face with my sleeve because there wasn't anybody there to see me do it or to comfort me if I didn't, and I got to work. That's when I met him, Caleb Whitfield, riding the fence line that marked where my land ended and his began. 300 acres of good grazing land, the finest spread in the county, passed down from his father and his father's father. He sat his horse like he'd been born to it, dark-haired, sun-browned, with a jaw that looked like it was permanently set against something, and eyes the color of creek water and shadow. "You're the widow who bought Higgins's dust," he said, not unkindly, but not kindly either. Just plain, the way a man states a fact he's already made his mind up about. "I'm the woman who bought 70 acres, I corrected him. "Whether it's dust is my concern, not yours." Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe, that I'd answered him at all instead of casting my eyes down the way widows were supposed to. "It's my concern when your fence rots and my cattle wander on a ground that can't feed them and breaks a leg in one of Higgins's old holes. That man let this place go to ruin for 10 years before he died. Then I suppose you'd best hope I fix the fence, Mr. Whitfield. Caleb Whitfield. Mr. Whitfield. I suppose you'd best hope I fix the fence, and in the meantime, keep your cattle on your own side." He touched his hat brim, something that might have been the ghost of a smile pulling at his mouth, and rode off without another word. I stood there fuming, though I couldn't have said exactly why. Maybe because he was right about the fence. Maybe because some small, foolish part of me had wanted him to stay and talk a while longer, and I was too proud and too raw with grief to admit it even to myself. Over the following weeks, I learned the shape of my failure in careful, humiliating detail. The well was low, and the water came up tasting of iron. Half my chickens died from something I never did identify. The mule was ornery, and the cow gave less milk than she ought. And every time I rode into prosperity for supplies, I felt the eyes on me. The pitying ones, and worse, the amused ones. Ezra Combs ran the mercantile and never missed a chance to ask, with a little smile playing round his mouth, how the dust farm was coming along. Fine, I'd say, every time, though my hands shook counting out coins I could scarce spare. Coming along fine. It was Caleb who found me the night the barn nearly burned. I'd been foolish, hanging a lantern too near the loft hay, and a gust through the loose boards knocked it and set the straw to smoldering. I smelled the smoke before I saw the flame and ran out screaming for help with no earthly notion of who might hear me, 3 miles from the nearest neighbor. But Caleb had been riding the ridge line again, checking his own fences in the last of the daylight, and he saw the orange glow and came down off that ridge like the devil himself was chasing him. We fought that fire together for the better part of an hour, hauling water from the well in anything that would hold it, beating at the flames with wet sacks, until it was nothing but smoking char in one corner of the loft, and we were both black with soot and coughing, standing in the yard in the dark. "You could have lost the whole barn," he said, wiping his face with his forearm, leaving a fresh streak of soot across his cheek. "Could have lost the house, too, if the wind had turned." "I know it," I said, and to my horror, my voice cracked on the words. I hadn't meant to cry in front of him. I hadn't meant to cry in front of anybody, not since that first week alone in the barn. But it all came up at once. The fear, the exhaustion, the 11 months of grief I hadn't let myself properly feel because there wasn't time, there wasn't anybody to catch me if I fell apart. "I don't know what I'm doing out here, Mr. Whitfield. I bought a dead man's ruin because I was too proud to be pitied, and I'm like to burn myself alive, proving a point nobody but Ezra Combs is even keeping score of." He was quiet a long moment, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read in the dark. "My mother used to say pride and courage look near identical from a distance," he said finally. "Only difference is what's underneath. Pride's got nothing holding it up. Courage has got something worth fighting for." He looked around at the smoking barn, the crooked fence, the whole sorry spread of Higgins's dust. "I don't know what's holding you up, Mrs. Foss, but I don't think it's nothing." He left before I could think of anything to say back to that, and I stood in my yard along while after his horse had faded into the dark, feeling something in my chest crack open that I kept clamped shut since Everett's funeral. After that night, things shifted between us, slow as spring thaw. He'd ride by more than fence checking required. He showed me how to patch the well, brought a jar of his own honey when my chickens finally started laying decent, taught me to read the sky for storms the way ranch folk did. I found myself listening for the sound of his horse's hooves on the north road, and hating myself a little for it, because I'd sworn off needing any man's help or attention ever again. "You watch yourself, Adaline," Constance warned me over supper one evening, using my given name the way she only did when she meant to lecture. "Caleb Whitfield's got half the mothers in this county angling their daughters at him. His family's got money and good land both. A man like that doesn't come courting a woman with 70 acres of dust and a name folks still whisper about." Nobody said anything about courting. I snapped, more sharply than I meant to, because the words had landed somewhere tender. But it wasn't only Constance's warning that aided me. It was Ezra Combs, who'd taken his smiling wider every time I came into town, like he knew something I didn't. And then, one gray afternoon in April, he told me exactly what. "Heard the banks calling in Higgins's old debts," he said, leaning over his counter with poorly hidden relish. "Seems your 70 acres of dust came with more than dirt attached. Higgins owed near $200 against that land before he died, and the banks decided it's time somebody paid up. That'd be you now, Mrs. Foss, seeing as you hold the deed." The floor seemed to tilt under me. $200. I had $11 to my name and a barn that still smelled of smoke. "That's not possible," I said, though my voice betrayed how possible I already believed it to be. "The land office never said anything about debts attached to the deed. Land office don't always know what a dying man owed private," Ezra said, and I could have sworn there was real pleasure in his voice, the particular pleasure of a man who told a woman she was foolish and was now watching the world prove him right. "Bank's given you 30 days. After that, They take the land back to cover the note, and you're out on the road with nothing to show for your dust farming but calluses. 30 days. I rode home in a daze, the wind cutting through my coat like it meant to finish what the news had started, and when I got to my own yard, I sat down right there in the dirt by the well and let myself cry the way I hadn't since Everett's funeral. Great, tearing sobs that came up out of some place I'd kept locked tight for 11 months, because grief and fear and shame all were the same face when a woman's alone and out of options. Caleb found me there. He didn't say a word at first, just crouched down beside me in the dirt, careless of his good trousers, and let me cry until I had no more crying in me. The same as that first week alone in the barn, only this time there was somebody there to witness it, and somehow that made it easier to bear rather than harder. "Tell me," he said finally, and I told him everything. The debt, the 30 days, the particular cruelty of Ezra Combs' smile when he delivered the news. "I'll lose it," I said. "I'll lose the only thing that's ever been mine, and everybody in Prosperity will say they told me so. And they'll be right. They'll have been right all along. I was a fool to think a woman could." "Stop that," Caleb said, sharper than I'd ever heard him speak to me. "Stop talking about yourself like you're already beaten. You fought a fire with your bare hands 3 weeks ago. You've kept chickens and a mule and a temperamental cow alive on land men twice your size said was worthless. You're not a fool, Adaline Foss, and I'll not sit here and listen to you call yourself one." I looked at him, soot-streaked memory and firelight still somehow living between us even in the gray afternoon, and something in me that had been braced tight for a year finally, quietly, gave way. "Then what do I do?" I whispered. "I don't have $200, Caleb. I don't have anything close to it." "No," he agreed. "But you've got 70 acres, and Walter Higgins was a great many foolish things. But he wasn't a stupid man, not in his younger years. Before the drink took him, he used to talk about that north section of his land like it was going to make him rich. Talked about it for years. And then one day, he just stopped, and folks figured he'd given up the notion same as he'd given up on everything else." "Give up on what notion?" "I don't rightly know," Caleb admitted. "I was a boy when he stopped talking about it. But he used to spend whole days out past your barn, digging around that old limestone shelf. And he built that barn right over the spot he dug the most. Struck me as strange even then. A man doesn't build his barn over good digging ground unless he's trying to hide something, or unless he already found what he was looking for and wanted it kept close." We went out to the barn that same afternoon, the two of us with lanterns and shovels, and I confess some small, foolish part of me thought we were chasing nothing but an old drunk's fantasy, that I was about to make an even greater fool of myself than I already had. But desperation makes diggers of us all, and I had 30 days and $11 and nothing left to lose by looking. The barn floor was packed earth, hard as brick in most places, but there was a section near the back corner, the same corner that had smoldered in the fire, I realized with a chill, where the ground gave differently under the shovel, looser, like it had been disturbed and resettled sometime in years past. We dug for near 2 hours, sweat soaking through my dress despite the cool evening, blisters rising on hands already rough with a season's hard work, and just when I was ready to admit we were digging nothing but a foolish grave for my last shreds of hope, Caleb's shovel struck something that wasn't dirt. It was a strong box, rusted nearly through, buried maybe 4 feet down beneath what must have been the original dirt floor before Higgins built up a new layer over it. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely help pry the lid, but Caleb got it open with the flat of his shovel, and there in the lantern light, packed in oilcloth gone brittle and yellow with age, lay a collection of raw silver, ore, uncut and unrefined, along with a hand-drawn map and a letter, the ink faded but legible, addressed to no one in particular, like a man writing to himself in his last clear years before the drink took the rest of him. The letter told a story I pieced together slow, over that night and the nights following. Walter Higgins had found a silver vein running under the north section of his land, a real one, assayed and confirmed by a man he'd paid to travel out from Kansas City and look at his ore. But Higgins had gotten it in his head, rightly or wrongly. The letter didn't fully explain that if word got out, the railroad or the mining companies would swindle him out of the land entirely. the way he'd watched happen to another rancher 2 counties over. So he'd buried what he'd found, built his barn over the entrance to keep it hidden, and meant to work it slow and quiet, a little at a time, keeping his fortune close and secret. Except the secret ate at him instead of sustaining him. The letter's handwriting grew worse toward the end, more erratic, and it spoke of fear and sleeplessness and a growing conviction that the silver was cursed, that it had already cost him his health and his peace of mind, and would cost him more before it was through. He'd stopped digging. He'd started drinking. And 10 years later, he was dead, and I had bought his dust for every dollar I owned. It turned out to be silver after all. I didn't sleep that night, sitting at my kitchen table with that or laid out before me in the lamplight. Caleb across from me, drinking coffee gone cold. Both of us too stunned and too wary of hope to say much of anything. "You could still lose it," Caleb said, finally quiet. "You've got 30 days in a vein of silver, nobody's assayed properly, and no money to hire the men to work it, even if it proves true. The bank won't wait on a story about Buried or Adaline. They'll want their $200 in coin. Then I'll sell some of what we found," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice came out. "Enough to satisfy the bank and hire an assayer besides. I don't need to be rich by Friday, Caleb. I just need to still own my land." He looked at me a long moment, something warm and unguarded in his face that hadn't been there the day he'd ridden the fence line, calling my land a dead man's folly turned mine. "You know," he said, "when you first came out here, I thought you were the most stubborn, foolish woman I'd ever met, buying dust on principle. And now I think you might be the most stubborn woman I've ever met. And I mean that as a compliment I don't hand out easy." He reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, just close enough that I could feel the warmth of it. "I'd like to help you see this through, if you'll let me. Not because you need a man to save you. You made it plain enough you don't. But because I'd rather stand beside you while you save yourself than watch it from the fence line." I won't pretend I said something clever back to him. I just nodded, my throat too tight for words, and let him take my hand across that table. And it was the first time since Everett's death that I'd let anyone hold on to me without feeling like I was losing some piece of myself in the surrender. Word got out in Prosperity within the week, the way word always does in a small town, though I never did learn who talked first. Whether it was the assayer Caleb rode 2 counties over to fetch, or someone who'd seen us digging by lantern light. By the time I walked into the bank with enough silver, or to cover Higgins's old debt 3 times over, the whole town had already heard some version of the story, each telling more outlandish than the last. Ezra Combs was in the bank that day, come to collect on some unrelated account, and I watched his face when the banker weighed my silver and did the sums and pronounced the debt not only covered but overpaid, with a fair sum owed back to me besides. "Well," Ezra said, and for once in his life, the man seemed to have run clean out of things to say. "Dust Farm's coming along fine, Mr. Combs," I told him, and walked out of that bank with my head high in my heart, for the first time in 11 months, feeling something closer to whole than broken. The silver proved out true, a real vein, enough that within a year I'd hired men to work it proper and legal, enough that the 70 acres everyone had laughed at became the most talked about property in 3 counties, though for entirely different reasons than before. I kept the land in my own name. That much I never gave up, not even later, when Caleb Whitfield asked me to marry him on a spring evening with the wheat just coming up green on a side of the fence line we no longer needed. And I said yes with my whole unguarded heart, because by then I trusted that he wanted me and not my dust, or my silver, or anything except the woman who dug it up out of the ground with her own 2 blistered hands. We were married that autumn in Prosperity, in the same church where the offering plate had once passed me by without much notice. And this time the whole town came out, not from pity, but because a widow who'd bought worthless land on nothing but pride and desperation had turned out to be the smartest woman any of them had ever misjudged. Ezra Combs even shook my hand at the wedding, though I don't believe he ever did stop tasting the words he'd said to me on those land office steps. I still keep that old strongbox, empty now, on a shelf in the house Caleb and I built together where the shack used to stand. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I take it down and think about that first week alone in the barn, crying into the dark with nobody there to see, certain I'd made the worst mistake of my life. I think about how close I came to believing them, Isra, Constance, the whole town of people who looked at a grieving widow and saw only what she'd lost, never what she might yet find. There's a lesson in it, I suppose, though I've never been one for tidy morals. Just this, that the ground folks call worthless is sometimes only waiting on someone stubborn enough and broken enough and brave enough to dig.